decided to do an extremely chaotic thing. So I was up late one night this week, and instead of choosing to go to bed at a reasonable time, I decided to make a bunch of tier lists. I did all my favorite Taylor Swift songs, all my favorite My Chemical Romance songs, and I was going to do all of my favorite Queen songs, but then I was like, you know, you've kind of been dying for an excuse to talk about Queen on your YouTube channel lately ever since you made that Bohemian Rhapsody video. So why don't you make a whole video out of it? And that way you get to talk about all the songs. How hard can it be, right? I am filming the intro at the end of the filming process, and I can confirm that this was extremely difficult. This video took me 6 days to make, and I have lost a ton of sleep. So with that being said, we're gonna go through all of the albums one at a time. I don't really know how to do the split screen thing where I can show the tier list as I'm making it, so I'm just gonna show the tier list each time we get through an album. But let's get into it, because oh boy, I am so excited to talk about Queen. Even though you can't really tell at first because my energy at the beginning of this video is kind of low, I'm sorry. Editing Lauren here. I realized I forgot to explain the tiers. I named them all after Queen songs and lyrics and stuff. S tier is You Take My Breath Away. A tier is I'm Having Such a Good Time, I'm Having a Ball. B tier is Doing All Right. C tier is Any Way the Wind Blows. And D tier is I use the actual titles and just the letters interchangeably throughout the video. Anyways, let's get to it. So we're starting off really strong with Queen's self-titled debut album, which is this really strong, cohesive, progressive hard rock album. So we start off with their first ever track, Keep Yourself Alive, which honestly, what a perfect way to kickstart the band's entire discography. This song is so good. This song reminds me a lot of Welcome to the Jungle, in that from those first guitars, you're just instantly hooked in. Like with both of those songs from the first second, you just immediately know you're in for something special. And lyrically, it does a great job of establishing Queen as both grandiose rock gods and scrappy underdogs. Yeah, this song is awesome. I'm gonna put it in Having Such a Good Time. I'm having a ball. Okay, next we have Doing All Right. And in spite of this song being the namesake for the B tier, I'm actually gonna put this song in the A tier with Keep Yourself Alive because I think it is so pretty. It's such a relatable and relaxing and comforting song, and it just feels like a warm hug every time I listen to it. I also really like Great King Rat. I don't have a ton to say about it because I haven't listened to a lot, but I definitely remember it being a super creative song and definitely like a harbinger of things to come for Queen. These multi-part, very instrumentally heavy pieces with a ton of like innovation and creativity, fantasy elements going on. It's a banger. I'm also going to put this one in the A tier. We're on a great streak here because the next song is My Fairy King, which I also really love. It has these surging double time piano motifs that give way to these like grand operatic flourishes with Roger's falsetto. Roger's falsetto is insane on this song. You get a very early sense for Freddie's aptitude for playing multiple characters in this song. You get this back and forth between this nervous, thin falsetto against his like more normal baritone vocals. That's another interesting thing about this record, is that a lot of times Freddie's like head voice has this very like light, feathery quality that you don't get on a lot of other Queen songs. It's interesting. It's very pretty to listen to. Up next we have Liar, which I think is Queen's first real masterpiece. I'm gonna put this song in S tier because I think Liar is kind of like the prequel to Bohemian Rhapsody, right? Like they're both these 6-minute epics that deal with like self-loathing and guilt. They both have these like back and forth soloist and choir elements to them. They both have a lot of religious references. They both have copious uses of the word mama. If there's anything bad I can say about Queen's debut album, it's just that the first 5 songs are such a streak of excellence that the rest of the album kind of suffers in comparison. Like, there's no bad songs on this album, and really not even any skips. It's just that the first 5 songs are all either really strong A tiers or S tier, whereas the rest of the album is more like low A tiers and solid B tiers. Night Comes Down has some really neat guitar work at the beginning. I'll put it in B tier. Modern Times Rock and Roll, a first banger from Roger, also a B tier. Son and Daughter does this really interesting thing with the guitars where they're almost like a high string section, which creates this really dramatic sound. And it's also the only Queen song to actually use a 4-letter expletive, which is interesting. I like Jesus a lot. It uses an unconventional time signature on the chorus, and the verses and chorus alternate between major and minor key, which does a really interesting job telling the story. And the ending of that song always sticks with me, where the instruments fade out and there's reverb on the vocals vocals and it ends on a 5 chord, so it's kind of unresolved and leaves you in suspense. I'm debating whether to put it in A tier or B tier. I guess I'll put it like the higher end of B tier because I don't really visit it that often. If there's a weak track on the album, it's probably Mad the Swine. Like, it's nice, it's kind of boppy, but like it doesn't really have anything that I find particularly interesting, so I'll just put it in Any Way the Wind Blows. So that's Queen's debut album, if you don't count Seven Seas of Rye, which I'm not going to because the actual version of this song shows up later. Which brings us to Queen 2. I love Queen 2. I let it be my vinyl on display for this video. This is often cited as Queen's most underrated album, which I don't necessarily think is true among like hardcore Queen fans. I think you'll very frequently hear people citing this as their favorite Queen album, but I definitely think it deserves more love in terms of like the general public since it didn't produce any hit singles. First up we have Procession, which is pretty self-explanatory, I guess. It's not really like an actual song, but I still really like it. It's really atmospheric and Brian's guitar sounds kind of like an organ, which I think is really impressive. So I'll put it in Doing All Right. Father to Son. I love Father to Son. I think it's such a grand and epic and cathartic song with a really compelling story. I love the like do-do-do-do-do-do-do intro. It's really torn between whether or not to put this one in S tier or A tier, because here's the thing about Father to Son. I think it should have been the closer of the album and not the opener. I think I would have put Seven Seas of Rye as the opener if I was doing the album. And like, I know there was the whole like black side, white side concept with this thing where all of the songs on the front side of the album were written by Brian, and all with the exception of Loser in the end. And all of the songs on the back side of the album were written by Freddie. But that's simple. You just make Freddie's side the front side and Brian's side the back side. I don't think it's that hard. I do think Father to Son is going to fall just slightly short of the S tier for that and a couple of other reasons. The other reason is that I do think this song feels long. I think with a lot of Queen's other like super long epic songs, they were able to make the parts distinct enough that it doesn't feel long and it constantly keeps your attention. Whereas like with Father to Son, I do find myself maybe zoning out a little bit at times. Like, I could probably remember every part of Liar. I can't remember every part of Father to Son. So I'm gonna put it in A tier, but it's an excellent song. Up next, we have my favorite song on Queen 2, which is White Queen, As It Began. It's definitely one of my favorite Brian May songs. This is such a soft and tender and beautiful ballad of unrequited love that's told through this very like fairy tale, almost mythological lens. This is really everything I could want out of an early Queen song. It has such lovely guitar work, lovely chords, the build to the end is so nice. It starts off so like soft and gentle, and then it has this soaring cathartic climax. It's so poetic. I love how the first verse and the final verse parallel themselves. Yeah, easy S tier for this song. I love this. Next up we have Someday One Day, which is notable for being the first Queen song where Brian sang the lead vocals. This song is really pretty. The lyrics are super charming. I love how it ends with "You'd never heard my song before the music was too loud," as if Brian's like introducing himself to the audience as a vocalist. It's not quite as strong as some of Brian's later work. Like, I think songs like Long Away just have that extra little bit of magic that this one was lacking, but it's still a really lovely song, so I'm gonna put it in like a high B tier. Next up we have The Loser in the End, which is a Roger solo vocal. This is a like bluesy rock song that tells the story of a troubled mother-son relationship. It's really interesting and unique lyrical material for a Queen song, and I think even though Roger's songwriting can be clunky sometimes, I think one of his strengths is that he's a keen observer of like life and human relationships, and you can see that on a lot of his songs like this and Drowse. It's a solid track. I'll give it a B tier. Next up we have The Fairyfeller's Masterstroke, which I definitely feel like is one of the most creative and just wacky and bizarre Queen songs, where I feel like they threw everything at the wall with this one, and it honestly works really well. I love the harpsichord on this song. It's very whimsical, and I can't really think of any other song that sounds like it. It has this very like Midsummer Night's Dream Shakespearean sort of vibe to it, which it also references Queen Mab, which makes me happy because hello, I literally played Mercutio. I believe I read somewhere that Freddie was inspired to write this song by a painting he saw in a museum, so that's really cool. I love this song. I'm gonna put it in A tier. Nevermore is a really beautiful song, and it's kind of a prelude to Love of My Life in that they're both these very theatrical surging piano ballads about lost love. Yeah, this song is gorgeous. It's really short. Since it's not as fleshed out as later Queen ballads, I'm going to put it in B tier, but it's like a very high B tier. This is a gorgeous song. Great to cry to after a breakup. March of the Black Queen. Now, this song is really interesting. A lot of people consider this song the centerpiece of Queen 2 and like a predecessor to Bohemian Rhapsody. A lot of people think it's better than Bohemian Rhapsody, actually, which I don't think is the case. Both March of the Black Queen and Bohemian Rhapsody are these grand multi-part epics with these very like weird and abstract lyrics, but I feel like there's something universally relatable and deeply like human and resonant about Bohemian Rhapsody that this song lacks. I think Bohemian Rhapsody has a really clear story arc, and each of the sections has a really clear purpose in developing that story arc, whereas March of the Black Queen is more so just about painting this picture and all this abstract imagery and building up this character of the Black Queen who boils and bakes and never dots her eyes. That being said, this song still freaking rocks. Like, the more I think about it, the more I want to go back and listen to it again, because it's been way too long. You really get a sense of the band's virtuosity and versatility when you're listening to it, and it does so many interesting things with tempo. Honestly, this song did kind of weird me out when I was younger. Like, I think it scared me a little bit, so it doesn't have the same nostalgia for me that a lot of other songs on this album do, but it's so good. I think I'm gonna give it like really high A tier. It's so close to S. Funny How Love Is. I feel like this is the one like skip on Queen 2. It's not bad, it's just kind of mid. It's really repetitive and it doesn't really go anywhere, so I'll put this in Any Way the Wind Blows. And finally, Seven Seas of Rye. Such a banger, such a classic. The piano riff is just unforgettable. It goes so hard live. I'm gonna put this in A tier. It should have been the album opener though, not the closer. There's also See What a Fool I've Been, which I think is a bonus track from Queen 2. And if I had to describe Freddie's vocals on this track, it would be if Robert Plant were a drag queen. That's all I'm gonna say. Yeah, this one's kind of fun, kind of campy. I feel like I'm gonna put it in B tier for now since I've only listened to it maybe twice, but I think if I listen to it more, it might grow on me. So this is the ranking as it currently stands now that we have gone through all of the songs on Queen 2, and with that, we shall move on to Sheer Heart Attack. Sheer Heart Attack was Queen's first breakthrough into mainstream popularity. It's a glam rock album. Like their first two albums, it is very theatrical, but it's less Shakespearean and more vaudeville. It has this very like witty, cheeky, satirical, campy vibe to it, and I can hear its influence in a lot of modern artists like Scissor Sisters and earlier Panic at the Disco. This album opens with Brighton Rock, which is often considered an underrated fan favorite. It's never been one of my personal favorites. I used to find like the really high-pitched vocals kind of off-putting. Maybe I wouldn't mind it now. I honestly need to give this song a revisit. The guitar work is undeniably excellent, so I will put it as a solid B tier. Update, I listened to this song again and I like it a lot more than I remember. The high-pitched vocals don't bother me as much anymore because like the duet aspect of the song is really fun. I'm gonna put it in A tier. Next up is Tenement Funster, which is another sort of anecdotal Roger song about life as an up-and-coming rock and roller. It's pretty good. It's okay, but it's not as well developed as some of his other ones, so I'll give it like a high C tier. Next we have one of the group's most signature and definitive songs, Killer Queen, and with good reason. This song is so clever and tightly written. It instantly grabs you with the snapping and Freddie's seductive vocals. It's a very punchy song. Like, you can't get it out of your head. Probably my favorite part is that one part in the second verse when Freddie's like, to avoid complications, she never kept the same address, and the triangle goes ding! Like, ooh! Some of the best harmonies, some of the best pop songwriting the group has ever put on display. Originally, I was going to put this in A tier because I don't have as much emotional attachment to it as I do to some other songs, but the more I think about it, the more I realize it's pretty much perfect, so I'm gonna put it in S tier. Flick of the Wrist, one of two diss tracks of sorts to Queen's former manager, Norman Sheffield. This song goes so hard. It's not quite as strong as Death on Two Legs, which we'll get to later, but the chorus is so good. Flick of the wrist and you're dead, baby. Blow him a kiss and you're mad. Yeah, this song rocks, and there's this really great sense of seething anger to Freddie's songwriting. There's an extra layer of bass in the vocals on the verses that gives them this really like evil and ominous atmosphere. Some of these lines I feel like would sound so ridiculous coming out of the mouth of any other singer, like seduce you with his money make machine, reduce you to a Muzak fake machine. Like, I don't think anybody else writes like that. Freddie, as always, just pulls them off with such confidence and commitment and passion. Like, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I don't think this man has phoned in a vocal performance in his life. Flick of the Wrist is great. It is a solid A tier. This song segues directly into Lily of the Valley, which is similar to Nevermore. It's a very pretty ballad, very short. I think Rami Malek mentioned somewhere that this was one of his favorite Queen songs. I remember liking it, but I don't remember a whole lot about it, so I'm gonna put it in B tier. Now I'm Here. This one is very popular among fans, and it's always a favorite at their live shows, but it's never really been a track that I've been particularly fond of. I've always thought the lyrics were kind of random and not like in an interesting way, like with Bohemian Rhapsody or March of the Black Queen. Like, I don't think the like songwriting flows particularly well here. I could be wrong because a lot of people like this song, so it's obviously doing something right. I'll give it like a high C tier. In the Lap of the Gods, this one's really unique and pretty. I feel like I would like it more. Like, I feel like I would put it in A tier, but the distorted vocals have always been kind of off-putting to me and didn't really seem to have much of a point, so I'll put it in Doing All Right. Stone Cold Crazy, another kind of under-the-radar fan favorite. I guess it's not that under the radar because it did start to get a lot more attention after It got a lot more attention after Metallica covered it. Great hooks, great riffs, Stone Cold Crazy, you know, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Put this one in the A tier. I'm having such a good time. I'm having a ball. Dear Friends, I have no memory of listening to this song. Well, I feel like I remember listening to this song. I feel like I remember liking it, but I have like zero idea what it sounds like other than that. Like, I think it's a pretty ballad. I'm gonna be nice and put it in like a low B tier, but I looked up the lyrics and like it looks really short. So yeah, that's probably where it belongs. Misfire. This is probably Queen's most innuendo heavy song. Certainly more so than anything on the actual album Innuendo. I'm trying to remember if this was the first John Deacon song. It might be, because I can't think of any other ones on the previous two albums. Yeah, this song is often joked about in the fandom because John Deacon has this perception of being like the shy, sweet, innocent member, when in reality he was writing songs about putting the thing in the thing. Yeah, so that's fun. I'm not super into the sound of this song though, so I'll put it in C tier. Bring Back Leroy Brown is the most like vaudeville track on this album. It has some very fun harmonies. I'll put it in B tier. She Makes Me, Stormtrooper in Stilettos. This song is so funny to me because I listened to it a little bit ago and it's this very like, I literally forgot what it sounded like, and it turns out it's this very chill ballad. It does not sound at all what you would expect a song called Stormtrooper in Stilettos to sound like. But yeah, this song's kind of boring and generic. I'll give it like a low C tier. It's not really my thing. In the Lap of the Gods Revisited, I think this is kind of like an overrated Queen song by the fandom. It's like a favorite at live shows, and I definitely understand why. It has like a very anthemic repeated chorus at the end. It's just kind of repetitive for me, and it doesn't have a lot going on lyrically. I mean, it's pretty, I guess. It's just not my favorite. I'll give it like a low B tier. Oh my gosh, I just realized I forgot Ogre Battle. This one's a banger. More great fantasy imagery, great metal guitar work, great drums. I'll put it in A tier. Here is the updated tier list now that we have added Sheer Heart Attack and also Ogre Battle. And now we have come to A Night at the Opera. Listen, A Night at the Opera is iconic. It is a musical smorgasbord. It is an incredible artistic statement. It is, as said in the movie Bohemian Rhapsody, a rock record with the scale of opera, the pathos of Greek tragedy, the wit of Shakespeare, and the unbridled joy of musical theater. Listen, that movie had a lot of problems, but that quote was a banger. It is the first Queen album that I loved. It is probably the first non-Taylor Swift album that I loved. And it's the only Queen album that non-Queen fans seem to be giving the time of day. Seriously, whenever like greatest album of all time conversations get started, A Night at the Opera is the only Queen album you ever hear mentioned in like the wider musical context. Like, but if I'm speaking to Queen fans who will know, then there's another album that I love maybe a little more than Night at the Opera, and we'll get to that. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into this album because it has some of my absolute favorite Queen songs, including the opener, Death on Two Legs. Listen, opening your album that is clearly intended to make your band superstars with possibly the hardest non-rap diss track ever created, gutsy move, respect. Incredible production, especially that unforgettable, just cacophonous intro. Incredible vocal performance from Freddie. I mean, always, what else is new? But like, he's just oozing hatred and disdain here. The lyrics are so cartoonish and over the top, but somehow still incredibly intimidating. I don't know, if anybody else called me a dog with disease and king of the sleaze, I would probably laugh, but if it's Freddie Mercury, I think y'all know where this song is going. It's S tier. It's a fan favorite for a reason. Amazing on a Sunday Afternoon. This song is so cute. I can't help but smile every time I listen to it. It's just so silly, goofy. I love it. You know, it makes me feel like a little dandy with a cane and a top hat. I'm gonna put this song in the B tier solely because of how short it is, but know that I love it. And now, we come to the most infamous and heavily memed non-single in Queen's entire catalog.
When my hand's on your grease gun, that's very subtle,
It's
isn't
a
it?
metaphor, Brian.
It's just a bit weird, Roger. What exactly are you doing with that car?
Where to put I'm in love with my car. I'm going to do something unprecedented. I am going to create an entirely new tier for this song. Because I have now realized there are certain songs in Queen's catalog that are far too ridiculous to be objectively good, but they're also too memorable and entertaining and silly goofy for anyone to possibly describe them as mid. And I'm in love with my car is most definitely one of those songs. So I am going to create an entirely new tier in which to put it. And I am going to name that tier, It's a Metaphor, Brian. Next up we have You're My Best Friend, which is one of Queen's sweetest and most wholesome love songs, and the first truly excellent standout John Deacon track. I know Freddie supposedly hated this song because I think it was because he didn't like the Wurlitzer keyboard or something, but honestly, I would not have known, because let me tell you, this song has some of Freddie's most delicious vocals. Yeah, this is a comfort song. It's going in A tier. 39. I love 39. I actually covered this song on my channel. It's one of my favorite Queen deep cuts. I think 39 is a really representative piece of Brian May's songwriting because he could often be the most cerebral Queen member, and he was also often the most sensitive Queen member, and I think this song really shows that off. Honestly, purely in terms of lyrics, this song is probably in my top 10 Queen songs. So many years have gone, though I'm older but a year. Your mother's eyes from your eyes cry to me. Candidate for the saddest thing Brian May ever wrote. The folk songwriting, the harmonies, everything about this song is just so beautiful. You know, I was going to put in A tier, but looking at the songs I have in S, I actually think I like this song better than Death on Two Legs, Liar, and Killer Queen. So yeah, it's going in the top. Sweet Lady. Oh my.
You call me sweet like I'm some kind of cheese.
It's good.
Oh, we are so silly. Sweet Lady, I am putting you right next to I'm in love with my car. Seaside Rendezvous. Yes, Freddie, I will be your Valentine. This song took what Queen were doing on tracks like Bring Back That Leroy Brown and Lazing on a Sunday Afternoon and just amped it up to absolute perfection. This song makes me want to tap dance. I actually tried to choreograph a tap routine to this song like 3 years ago during the pandemic. It did not go well. Putting this one in A tier, it makes me giddy. I honestly don't know where to start with this next track. The Prophet's Song. Listen, this is how I spot the real fans. This is the song I can pull out when the boomers at the Queen concert ask me if I'm only there because I liked the movie. This is the if you know, you know. The Prophet Song is without a doubt my favorite Queen deep cut, and it is often the song I will pull out as my favorite Queen song if I don't feel like looking basic. The Prophet Song is 8.5 minutes long, and it does not waste a single second. I have many a fond memory of transcendent and unhinged late night vinyl jams to this in 8th grade. It's difficult for me to pinpoint wherein exactly the power of this song lies, because it presents itself as something so grand and mystical with its haunting melody and otherworldly a cappella section, and let's be real, the single greatest guitar solo in Queen's entire discography. And And yet there's also a more universal and simple weight to it. For all of Queen's abstractitudes and wide-ranging cultural references, my favorite lyric in their discography is still, "Love is still the answer, take my hand." It's a majestic piece of work. It's Brian May's best piece of songwriting. It's Queen's answer to Stairway to Heaven.
It's better than Stairway to Heaven.
It's going straight to the top of the S tier. The Prophet song truly does take my breath away. Love of My Life, one of the most tender and romantic songs Freddie Mercury ever wrote. I really think this is the final form of what he was going for with Nevermore and Lily of the Valley. I think this song has one of Queen's most stunning bridges. Yeah, I'm gonna put this one in S tier. It gets more beautiful every time I hear it. Good Company, a really quirky, neat little fable song from Brian. I know this was kind of like a passion project for him, because I looked it up and he tried to make like this entire big band using just his guitar for like the woodwinds and the brass instruments and stuff, and he recorded like every note one at a time. I've heard people cite this song as a weak link on the album, and really that's only because the rest of the songs are so good. This is a perfectly memorable and interesting and catchy little song. I'm gonna put it like in the top half of the B tier. Bohemian Rhapsody. Man, what can I say about this song that hasn't already been said? This song changed the way I listen to music. It's what made me love rock music. I have had many quote-unquote favorite songs over the years, but if I'm being truly honest with myself, none have ever truly managed to top this one.
Also, please listen to my cover of it if you haven't already. I worked my butt off on it. Please, I'm begging you.
Much has been written about what Bohemian Rhapsody supposedly means, which is always something Freddie has encouraged listeners to decide for themselves. Obviously, some people have also tried to claim that it's futile and that trying to assign meaning to a song this nonsensical is pointless, which honestly, I think those people really just haven't listened to much Queen music, because I definitely think Bohemian Rhapsody is more comprehensible and down to earth than something like Great King Rad or even Seven Seas of Rye. To me, I don't think there's any way that something as enduring as Bohemian Rhapsody could be completely random and meaningless, and there's always been something so deeply human about the song to me. So I've spent years trying to figure out what Bohemian Rhapsody means to me personally. And while I was working on covering the song, I finally figured it out. I think Bohemian Rhapsody, in the simplest possible terms, is a song about facing your demons. I think it's a song about seeing the craziest and darkest parts of yourself and not being ashamed of them anymore. And I think that's why it's continued to mean so much to so many people for, oh my god, almost 50 years. There are very few bands where I can really say that their most popular song is actually their best song, but I think Queen is one of the few exceptions. Bohemian Rhapsody is a perfectly paced, perfectly structured story with a clear beginning, middle, and end. It's perfectly produced, perfectly performed. Yeah. Nothing tops it. Like, you can absolutely have Queen songs you like better than Bohemian Rhapsody. I might have some I like better than Bohemian Rhapsody. Who knows? We'll see. But if you're trying to tell me there's a Queen song that is objectively better, that is a more perfect microcosm of everything the band can accomplish, I'm sorry, you're kind of lying to yourself. Like, be serious. This video is taking me way longer to film than I thought it would, and now my outfit continuity is ruined. Great. And the lighting is inconsistent because I'm filming this at different times of day, and I'm going back and changing some things as I, like, revisit the songs. Like, just bear with me, guys. Bear with me. I swear, I'm trying to keep this video as concise as possible. Like, I hope it ends up being under an hour. I love these songs. This band is special to me. I gotta give them the love they deserve. Anyways, that was A Night at the Opera. I love this album so much, guys. I think every Queen album has at least one S-tier track. This album has 5. That's how good it is. It's a masterpiece. What Queen album could I possibly like better? Oh. A Day at the Races, my beloved. Listen, this album is to Queen what Speak Now is to Taylor Swift. Does that make any sense? No. Am I going to elaborate? No. A Night at the Opera is an album of higher highs, but admittedly also lower lows. A Day at the Races is pretty much just great song after great song after great song. Like, I think this is the one Queen album where I wouldn't put any songs below the B tier. It's full of absolutely gorgeous melodies and incredible musicianship, and I also think it's Queen's most emotional record outside of their two final ones. This album is very special to me, and I'm so excited to give it the love it deserves because I've been having a lot of thoughts about it lately. So we open with Tie Your Mother Down, which is certainly an attention-grabbing, but also somewhat odd choice to open this album with. A Day at the Races, like I said, I think is one of Queen's most sensitive, and may I even say feminine albums, whereas Tie Your Mother Down is this very macho, sexually aggressive hard rocker, which Queen doesn't have a ton of, but they certainly exist. But as far as those types of songs go for Queen, this is pretty much the best it gets. I think this song is kind of fantastic. I love the riff. Freddie goes absolutely ham with the vocals. I love how hilariously dark the lyrics are. I mean, take your little brother swimming with a brick, Jesus Christ. I kind of want to put this song in S tier. Like, I don't know if it's objectively better than some of the songs in A tier, but I think I come back to it more. So yeah, Tie Your Mother Down is great. You Take My Breath Away. I mean, the namesake of the S tier has to go in the S tier. I adore this song. It is on the same level of the Prophet song in terms of Queen deep cuts that are just so dear to my heart. Aside from a few extremely well-placed grand harmonic flourishes, this song is basically just Freddie and a piano, and what a heavenly combination. This is such a stunning and haunting and heartbreaking ballad of just pure longing. I think this song really shows off one of Freddie's biggest strengths as a vocalist, which is his skill with dynamics. He knows exactly when to go for a delicate, tender sigh and exactly when to go for passionate pleading. It has the most gorgeous use of diminished chords that lead to these just soaring resolutions in the bridge especially. I would say I want this song played at my wedding, but it honestly feels too intimate for that. It's more the vibe of like lying in bed next to somebody and stroking their face and just like taking them in. Intimate, that's the exact word I'd use to describe this song. It is the most breathtakingly intimate song in Queen's entire discography, and I love it so much. Long Away, another really gorgeous song. This is probably my second favorite song where Brian sings the lead vocals after 39. It sounds very relaxing and peaceful and mid-tempo, but if you really listen to the lyrics, it's this heartbreaking, almost character study of depression and loneliness and longing for connection. Brian's lyricism really shines in this song, as it does in most of his songs. He's honestly probably my favorite songwriter in Queen. Lonely as a whisper on a star chase, just so lovely. I'm going to put Long Away quite high on the A tier. The Millionaire Waltz. Oh my gosh, this song has grown on me so much over the years. It makes me want to collapse dramatically on a velvet sofa or dance around a ballroom and throw rose petals everywhere. They managed to create this very Baroque, almost Mozart-esque feel to this song with using entirely rock instruments, mind you. It's so impressive how they pull off this effect, especially with Brian's guitar solo where it's like da 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 da. It makes such beautiful use of chords and tempo changes in just like the most simple ways. It's the simple little details where Freddie is singing Once We Were Mad, We Were Happy, and it's in major key, and then he sings Now I Am Sad, You Are So Far Away, and it goes to minor, and like that's so simple, but it's so well done. The counterpoint, John Deacon's bass is so good. Oh my gosh, this song just makes the music nerd in me happy. I'm gonna put it in S tier. I don't care what anyone thinks. We're not even halfway through the album and we already have 3 songs in the S tier. I told you guys this album is so good, you're missing out. You and I, this song is so cute. There's so many just like wholesome, adorable love songs on this album. This one gets A tier solely for this one harmony that makes me like really happy. Everything's sunny and bright. Somebody to Love. You know what? If there was ever a Queen song that I could love more than Bohemian Rhapsody, this is the one. It is a perfect piece of art. I think this is Freddie's finest vocal performance of all time. The bridge is my favorite moment in Queen's entire discography. It is a searing and cathartic and gut-wrenching cry to the heavens that I think basically every human being has been able to relate to at some point. God knows I have. I've heard it said that this is Freddie's favorite song he ever wrote, and I can totally see why. I think this is one of his most honest and personal songs. I think it's some of the closest we ever come to him letting us see beneath that carefully crafted persona. I know Freddie never really had that much of a diaristic approach to his songwriting. He didn't really seem like the kind of artist who wanted his fans to like know what was going on in here. Like, he's not Kurt Cobain, he's not Taylor Swift. But every time I listen to this song, I am just so in awe of its sheer rawness and sincerity. And you can't tell me that at least some of that isn't real. It's going in S tier, right next to Bo Rap. Where did you think it was gonna go? Dang it, my cousins came over and now my outfit continuity's ruined again. Now I'm not even wearing a Queen shirt anymore. Celine is a queen though. White Man. Okay, so I kind of think this is the most underrated Queen song. Songs like March of the Black Queen, The Prophet's Song, and 39 have very much gotten the love they deserve from Queen fans, even though they're not very well known by the general public. I never hear anybody talking about White Man, and that's probably because of the subject matter. For those of you who don't know, White Man is sung from the point of view of a Native American, which of course Brian May, who wrote the song, is white and British. I feel like based on that information alone, it would be very easy to expect this song to age terribly, or at least be the worst song on this album. I actually think this song is extremely powerful. Like, in terms of songs from the point of view of a minority that weren't actually written by a minority, this is about as empathetic and true to life as you're going to get. This song is a scathing indictment of colonialism, environmental destruction, which we already know Brian May to be passionate about, as well as just the simple condescending prejudice of assuming one race to be educated and the other to be savage. It's full of incisive and pointed lyrics, which Freddie sells with his entire chest. Hey, Brian may have been white, but Freddie was Parsi. It's not out of the realm of possibility that he may have related to some of this. Then there's the closing lyric, which ranks among my favorites in Queen history. What is left of your dream? Just the words on your stone. A man who learned how to teach, then forgot how to learn. Call me crazy, but I'm putting this song in S tier. It really deserves more love. Big fat mood whiplash coming up next with Good Old Fashioned Loverboy, which honestly I think rivals Don't Stop Me Now for the happiest song of all time. This song is just a shot of pure infectious joy. It's also probably the gayest song in Queen's entire discography. Like, come on, Freddie, you're not fooling anybody. No straight man could have written this. I love how the Good Omens fandom has basically adopted this as Crowley and Aziraphale's song, and then it got stolen by TikTok, which I try not to be too mad about. But there's so many moments in this song that are just so satisfying, like the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 o'clock on the little back and forth in the guitar solo. Yeah, I can't not put this one in S tier. It just has those perfect dancing around the kitchen vibes. Drowse. Even my least favorite song on this album is still really good. It's an uncommonly introspective song from Roger about coming of age ennui and figuring out what you want to do with your life, and it has all of these nice little specific lyrical details. He pulls off this softer, mellower vibe really well. It doesn't really have the same magic as the other songs on this album for me. It's still really solid. I'll give it a high B tier. Eo Toriate, or Let Us Cling Together in Japanese. This is a really gorgeous ballad with some nice chords. I used to love playing this on piano. Lovely lyrics. I'm obviously a sucker for major to minor key transition, and it was written for their Japanese fans, which is just so sweet. Great closing track to the album, a solid A tier.
Also, my cousins and I love to make fun of this one part where it sounds like Freddie is saying peanut gun.
So that's a day at the races. I put over half of this album in S tier. It's pretty safe to say it's my favorite Queen record. Thankfully, Queen continued their streak of excellence with their next album, News of the World, a more conventional hard rock album in response to critics growing tired of Queen's massive prog theatricality, which, I'm sorry, do you hate fun? News of the World still includes plenty of the fantastic harmonies and genre roulette that made Queen's first 5 albums so special, and in my opinion, it's a near-perfect record, with the sole exception of including the first bottom tier track on our list. So we of course start off with We Will Rock You, Queen's signature anthem, and one of the most iconic album openers of all time. It's iconic for a reason, and I could probably go the rest of my life without hearing it and be okay. It's just played at so many sports events and car commercials, and don't get me wrong, it's still a great song. I certainly don't complain when it comes on, but I'm gonna put it in B tier because it doesn't really need me to hype it up, does it? I put We Will Rock You below Good Company. I'm not like other Queen fans. And it is of course followed by its sister song, We Are the Champions, which I don't get sick of. This song is just glorious catharsis. I consider it a challenge before the whole human race, and I ain't gonna lose. I have very fond memories of blasting this song after finishing a particularly grueling night of homework. I also love how quirky Freddie's phrasing often is in this song, like, you've brought me fame and fortune and everything that goes with it. Like, nobody else would have sung that line like that. It's just... I'm going to put We Are the Champions in the A tier. Following that iconic duology is Sheer Heart Attack, the song, not the album, in which Queen proves that they could play their greatest rivals, punk rockers, at their own game. I do love the verses to this song. They're really catchy. The chorus is kind of annoying, though, with that long, drawn-out she. Still a cool song, though. I'll put it in B tier. All Dead, All Dead. This was written about somebody's cat, I think Brian's. Nice mellow ballad with some really poignant lyrics that doesn't try too hard to pull at the heartstrings. Also has Freddie's lowest recorded note, an F2 in the backing vocals. Nice song, it's a high B tier. Spread Your Wings, love it! One of John Deacon's best songs for sure. Great narrative story, really simple but gorgeous piano and guitar work, soulful vocal performance from Freddie, and I love the double time breakdown in the live version too. It really makes the song soar. This one goes in the A tier. Fight from the Inside, really nice cut from Roger. He's got some great vocals on here, and it's got a good groove. It's doing all right. Get Down, Make Love. This is the most uncomfortable song about sex I've ever heard. Mom, pick me up, I'm scared. When I was younger, I used to get squicked out really easily by sexual songs. I was so scandalized when I heard this for the first time. The moaning! I forced myself to listen to this song again yesterday, which, like, it's not as bad as I remember, but it's still pretty bad. The lyrics are so awkward. And it stinks, because there's some really interesting production on this song, and the chorus is super catchy. Every time I get high, you say you wanna come down. Congratulations, Get Down, Make Love. News of the World could have been a missless album, but you just had to ruin it with obscene amounts of uncomfy D tier. Sleeping on a Sidewalk. Yeah, this one's a vibe. I read somewhere that this was a kind of experimental track for Queen, as the backing track was a lot more improvised and sloppily produced than their previous ones, which definitely worked. Not one of my favorites, but I listen whenever it comes on. B tier. Who Needs You? This one is fun and vibey. You guys are just mean. I think the Latin style is really unique. It's got that John Deacon down-to-earth charm, and there's some really satisfying harmonic moments too. Reaching out for a helping hand. About the only bad thing I can say about this song is that some of the wording on the third verse doesn't make much sense, but I'm still gonna put it in A tier despite the haters. And now we come to my favorite track on this album, It's Late. Some of Brian's most compelling lyrics about trying to save a failing relationship, some of Roger's best drumming, and a mind-blowing blues rock vocal performance from Freddie, who hits the highest note of his career in this song at the end, a whopping E6. Huh, interesting. I never realized till I made this video that News of the World has both the lowest and highest vocal notes of Freddie's career. I definitely think this is one of Queen's most underrated songs, and an S tier for me. And the closing track of this album, My Melancholy Blues, which is this delightful cocktail jazz pastiche from Freddie. Now this is a song that makes me feel like I want to faint dramatically on a velvet sofa. It's perfect for whenever you just feel like a little, oh, woe is me. One of Freddie's most distinctive vocal and piano performances on this song, and it really shows off his ability to pull off even the weirdest lyrics with his pitch-perfect phrasing. Only he could pull off rhyming exposure with enclosure. Very high in the A tier. I'm super fond of this song. So that's News of the World. Certainly a more commercial rock record that doesn't quite reach the transcendent brilliance of its two predecessors, but still with plenty of great cuts. Next stop is Jazz, the single most chaotic album in Queen's discography. Half of this album is delightfully bonkers genre shenanigans, and the other half is kind of boring, but we shall press on. The album opens with the largely Arabic Mustafa, a fascinating wild card of a track which shows Freddie paying homage to his Persian roots. Strange as it may sound to casual listeners, I actually find the melody and energy of this song to be incredibly infectious. It just scratches an itch in my brain. It's also an excellent showcase of Freddie's magnificent vocal dexterity. This song sounds extremely difficult to my ears. Each lightning-fast vocal run and flipped R just rolls off of Freddie's tongue with such undeniable finesse. I'm actually gonna put this song in A tier. I really enjoy it. It also sounds kind of like boss music, so that helps. Fat Bottom Girls. I have a concerning amount of fondness for this song. It's just such ridiculous fun. Oh, are you gonna to take me home tonight, please? How dare you call it problematic? I want a free milkshake for guessing this song on the radio when I was 13. Not even problematic as much as it is just odd. What do you mean she was such a naughty nanny? The song also just creates the best whiplash every time it comes up on shuffle. Let me put you in my shoes for a second. You're in the shower, steeped in melancholy as you hear the final plaintive notes of Who Wants to Live Forever. The music fades out. A tier, you're lying if you think you're immune to this song. Jealousy, not much to say about this one except that it's another heartfelt Queen ballad with lovely music and lyrics. Doing alright. Bicycle Race, I definitely liked this song a lot more when I was younger. I've kind of outgrown the silliness of it at this point. I'll still give in to the nostalgia when it comes on though, and it has one of the most fun guitar solos. B tier. Let me entertain you. This song rocks so hard. How come none of y'all told me? It's always great to see Queen continue to lean into their showmanship and theatricality, even as the critics continue to disparage them for it, with such delightfully presentational lyrics as "We'll give you rock a la carte." I personally love the little meta of "We'll sing to you in Japanese, wink wink, teo toriate," and Freddie's vocals are just oozing charisma and danger on this track. This is 10 times sexier than Get Down, Make Love will ever be. A tier, I love Mustafa, but this should have been the album opener. Dead on Time. This is like Stone Cold Crazy, but somehow even better. Another breakneck thrash metal song that has probably caused many a car accident. Man, I know I keep mentioning Freddie's vocals because of course I do, but he's just so impressive on this album in particular. Like, the note he starts this song off on is insane. Also, this song references Keep Yourself Alive, and that makes me happy. A tier, I'm having such a good time. I'm having a ball. Dang it, now we're to the boring part of the album. If You Can't Beat 'Em is a decent John Deacon track. I really can't think of anything I dislike about it, but I also can't think of a single thing that makes it stand out, so I'm gonna put it in C tier. Same with In Only 7 Days and Dreamer's Ball. Like, they're nice, I guess. There's some okay harmonic moments. Fun It has one of the stupidest hooks in Queen's entire discography. Like, don't shun it, fun it.
Roger, what did you do?
It's not bad enough for the D tier though, so I'll put it in C. I do like Leaving Home Ain't Easy. There's some really satisfying chord changes in this song, and Brian sounds lovely. I'll put it in Doing Alright. Luckily, we end this streak of midness with an all-time classic, Don't Stop Me Now, the scientifically proven happiest song of all time. I feel like there's two types of happy songs. There's the kind that you already have to be in a good mood to enjoy, otherwise they feel like they're just forcing you to smile. For example, I don't want to listen to like Happy by Pharrell Williams when I feel like crap. And then there's the kind that instantly put you in a good mood no matter how crappy you feel. And Don't Stop Me Now is absolutely the latter. I could be in the worst mood of my entire life, but if someone puts this song on, I'll be dancing around the room within a minute. Those of you in the comments, help me figure out why that is. Help me figure out why some happy songs you have to already be happy to enjoy, and other ones have the power to make you happy even if you're not. I feel like for Don't Stop Me Now, at least, the slow opening section is kind of an important part of that, because it gives you a second to like ease into the mood of the song before it hits you with a full blast of supersonic joy. With all of that said, S tier, this song is literally perfect. I'll never get tired of it. Sadly, we end the album with more mid. Half of More of That Jazz is just reprises of previous songs, and the other half is just kind of dumb. So that was Jazz. Definitely the weakest album so far in Queen's discography, but still with more great songs than not. We have officially arrived at the 80s, and bid farewell to Queen's no synthesizers era. If you'll allow me to once again compare Queen albums to Taylor Swift albums, The Game is like Queen's 1989, a firm stylistic departure that was gradually built up to throughout previous albums. The Game is what really established Queen as serious hitmakers with major crossover appeal, and it produced a string of excellent singles. I definitely think it's one of Queen's tightest and most cohesive albums, and probably the one with the best popular reputation outside of A Night at the Opera. The opener, Play the Game, is an infectious blend of progressive rock and synth pop that's aged shockingly well over the years. I used to not really like this song, but it's actually grown on me quite a bit. It's honestly quite masterful how well the synths are blended into this song by a band that's previously never used them. And it does a great job reassuring audiences that Queen will stay faithful to what made them special as a band while continuing to evolve with the times. Oh, and it also has a really unintentionally funny music video. I'm feeling a lower A tier for Play the Game. It's not one of my favorites, but I have a huge amount of respect for it. Dragon Attack is very funky and a pretty popular deep cut with fans. It's never been one of my personal favorites, but I do love the breakdown at the end. I'll give it a B tier. Next up is the biggest hit from this album, Another One Bites the Dust, one of the most slick, tightly produced, and overall iconic songs in Queen's catalog. Another One Bites the Dust is a really uncharacteristic song for Queen. It's very stark and minimalist compared to most of their other songs, which really makes every detail stick out and punch you in the face. I love how tense and angular the groove of this song is, and the build from the first verse to the second verse is so perfect. This song is like this slowly simmering cauldron that gradually just boils over and explodes. Overall, a stylistic experiment that really paid off. What a timeless, effortlessly cool song. S tier. Need Your Loving Tonight. I really like this song and I can't even explain why. Oh my gosh, there's this one harmony in there that I go absolutely feral over every single time. Yeah, A tier, what can I say? It's a bop. Crazy Little Thing Called Love, another classic single in which Freddie does Elvis better than Elvis. Man wrote one of the catchiest songs of all time in the bathtub. Why did the rest of us even bother? The bass line and the gloriously finger-snapping third verse and the Ready Freddy. It's so great. A tier. Rockin' Prime Jive. I forgot how much I liked this song. I haven't listened to it in a year or two, but when I put it in my headphones, I instantly started bopping my head as soon as the main beat of the song started. Yeah, this might be my favorite song where Roger sings the lead vocal. He really sells it. I'll put it in lower A tier. Don't Try Suicide.
No, don't kill yourself. You're so sexy.
Okay, I genuinely think it would be kind of genius if the suicide prevention hotline made this their hold music or something, because hear me out. I went up to my friend who was hypothetically about to commit suicide and played this song. I think they would be too confused to go through with it. Like, it just ruins the mood. You can't kill yourself with the last song you heard being Don't Try Suicide. The vibe is off. Don't try suicide. You're just gonna hate it. Yeah, this is going straight to the top of the It's a Metaphor Brian tier. It's kind of the best song in that tier. I literally ran out of t-shirts that fit the vibe of this video, so congratulations. You guys get Hot Girl Summer Lauren today. Anyway, Sail Away Sweet Sister, a really pretty ballad from Brian. This song has this one insanely gorgeous harmony moment that makes my ears explode. The one reason I'm not putting this song in A tier is because I look at the lyrics and some of them have kind of weird sus incesty vibes. I mean, benefit of the doubt, I'm sure Brian didn't mean it that way, but it does make listening to the song a little awkward for me, so I'll put it in B tier. Coming Soon, kind of mid. It has some cool-ish moments, but overall it's definitely the song that adds the least to the album, so I'll put it in Any Way the Wind Blows. For all of its upbeat coolness, the game actually closes on a rather down-tempo note with the classic Brian May ballad Save Me, which is really elevated by Freddie's soaring vocal performance. There's this one insane riff he does in this song that blows my mind every time I hear it. There's some excellent songwriting in this too. I hang my head and I advertise, a soul for sale or rent. That's such a poignant image to me. A fantastic ballad that I always love revisiting. It's a high A tier. I also went back and listened to the bonus track from News of the World, Feelings, Feelings, which is this really great Zeppelin-esque blues rocker that has a great sense of pent-up angst from Freddie on the vocals. His high belt really shines here. It's a great track, and I would put it in A tier, but it's super short, so I'll put it at the higher end of B. And here's the updated tier list. Really like this album. It's very consistent. Hot Space. Where to start with Hot Space? For a long time, Hot Space was regarded as Queen's one true flop, with only one song that was universally loved by fans. However, it's definitely experienced a bit of a critical and fan reassessment in the past few years, which I definitely appreciate. I only think this is Queen's third worst album. It was definitely one of the weaker albums that Queen had put out up to this point, and certainly the one that sounded the least like Queen, but I'd still definitely describe it as a net positive. There are at least 3 songs on this album I really like that aren't Under Pressure. The rest are for the most part inoffensively mid at worst, with really only one track I actively dislike. So we start off with Staying Power, which is definitely one of the most disco funk influenced songs on this album, and I really like it. It's got a terrific hook, the groove is fantastic, Freddie's vocals are charismatic as ever. I'm gonna put this in A tier. The second track is definitely less successful. Dancer is fine, but a little clunky. I definitely get the sense that writing-wise, Brian was probably the least comfortable out of the members with this new sound. It's not awful though, so I'll put it in Any Way the Wind Blows. Back chat. Okay, this song slaps. John Deacon's songwriting really shines on this track. It's got that same tight, tense groove as another one bites the dust, and it's clear that musically this is right where he belongs. I've read somewhere that this was a sort of diss track to Brian and Roger for being dismissive of John's writing contributions, and oh my gosh, the music video for this song is so funny because John looks so pleased with himself and Brian and Roger just look miserable. Meanwhile, Freddie's just there putting his entire chest into the bridge like, you go Freddie, have your bassist back. This one's going in A tier. It's definitely one of the songs on the album that's aged the best. It sounds so good. Body language. Cringe! I don't like this song. No, I do not. This is often the track people point to as Queen's worst song, and I definitely think it's the track most responsible for Hot Space's negative reception over the years. I've seen a lot of contrarians try to claim that this song is good, and it's not completely devoid of interesting musical ideas. The bass line is admittedly really good, and I like the bridge, but it's just so underwritten. Half of the lyrics are just, give me your body. Where Get Down, Make Love was gross and uncomfortable, at least it was kind of creative. This song just feels like if you asked an AI to write a song about sex. I don't know, I guess Queen songs about sex just tend to be kind of cursed to me. Freddie could sound extremely seductive on more innuendo-driven songs like Staying Power and Let Me Entertain You, but he's not Prince. This really explicit stuff just doesn't work for him. And I know the implications of what I'm saying here. You just don't want to see gay men expressing their sexuality. That's the thing though, because I know Freddie was attracted to men. It just comes across to me very stilted and forced whenever he tries to represent this very stereotypically heteronormative idea of sex. Like, I'm sorry, Freddie, I just don't believe you want to bang women. Do I think this is the worst Queen song? Well, I definitely think there's worse things a Queen song can be than flagrantly awful, boring. But I definitely don't care for this song at all. It's going straight into D tier. Okay, enough of that. Now for an actual good song. Action This Day is such a banger, hello? The beat is so good and fresh, and it doesn't sound like anything else in Queen's catalog, and I kind of love it. It's like my favorite Roger deep cut. Yeah, this one's going in A tier. Easily the best non-single on the album. Put Out the Fire. People are shot by people. People with guns. Yeah, for that lyric alone, it's going in It's a Metaphor, Brian. Life is Real, song for Lennon. First of all, this song literally starts with the G note. I kind of don't know how to feel about this song. Like, it's a nice ballad, I guess, and I get a feeling that Freddie was trying to write something more honest, but some of the lyrics are so strange and cryptic that I just can't make myself take it seriously. Breastfeeding myself. I guess it's better and more memorable than just like mediocre, so I'll put it on lower B tier, but I don't really get this song. Calling All Girls, pleasant but unmemorable. It's got some catchy parts, but that's about it. I'll put it in Any Way the Wind Blows. Las Palabras de Amor. This song has the word Despacito in it, so that's funny. Other than that, it's a nice enough B tier ballad. It just doesn't really have that extra Queen magic that makes a lot of their other ballads so special. It's kind of like Walmart Teo Toriate. Cool Cat. This is the last song I ever thought I'd hear in an Amazon commercial. This song's definitely had a resurgence of popularity in the last few years, and I definitely see why. It's probably the Queen song that sounds the most like something you'd hear on today's radio. It's got this nice summery vibe to it, and Freddie's falsetto vocals sound really excellent. I'm gonna put it as a solid B tier. It's not one of my favorites, but I see why so many people like it. And finally, the closing track, and one of the greatest duets in rock history, Under Pressure. There's really nothing like it. It kind of lures you into a false sense of security with its iconic feel-good bass line and scat vocals, and then ends up delivering a torrent of gut-wrenching existential lyrics about the human condition. And it all builds to one of the most glorious climaxes in any Queen song, with Freddie and David both pleading their hearts out with the audience for us to give love one more chance, even if it's such an old-fashioned word. Yeah, Under Pressure's S tier. It's a classic in every sense of the word. There's other great songs on this album, but there's a reason this is the only one that really stuck. Oh, then there's the bonus track Soul Brother. Yeah, this song is kind of goofy in that the lyrics are basically just comprised of references to a bunch of previous Queen songs, but also Freddie wrote it for Brian, so my sentimental heart has to put it in B tier. Oh, there's also A Human Body, which is the bonus track from the game. This song's kind of dumb. I don't like the robot vocoder. I'll just put it in the lower end of Any Way the Wind Blows. So that's the tier list with Hot Space. At least the bass lines on this album are S tier. Next up is The Works, which does have a couple of clunkers, but overall really helped to put Queen back on top after Hot Space. It's probably tied with The Game in terms of which album produced the best run of singles for Queen, two of which were highlights of their iconic Live Aid performance, which is what really helped to put the band back on top. The lead single of this album is of course Radio Gaga, which for a while I had kind of a similar opinion to this song that I had on We Will Rock You. I got pretty sick of hearing it for a long time and was really only interested in hearing it at live performances where it admittedly always kills. I revisited this song for the first time in probably 2 years, and I do still think the chorus is kind of annoying. But there's a lot more to like about this song than I remembered. The verses have some great commentary on how the state of music has become much more about spectacle and less about actual art. And I was surprised at how great the synths in this song sound. They have this lovely, haunting, nostalgic quality, especially towards the last minute or so with Brian's guitar soaring over them. I'll still put this one in B tier because the repetitiveness of the chorus kind of drags it down for me, but it's at the higher end for sure. Tear It Up. Yeah, this one's another kind of generic AC/DC-esque rocker, which was never really like my favorite thing Queen did. It's really lacking in the creativity and fun of songs like Fat Bottom Girls and Tie Your Mother Down, but I don't hate it, so I'll put it in Any Way the Wind Blows. It's a Hard Life. Another in my favorite subgenre of Queen songs, the ones that make me want to collapse on a velvet sofa. This is the most Hal Jenkins Pendragon coded song I have ever heard in my life. It's a Hard Life is one of my favorite Queen ballads that has plenty of both fun and pathos. It strikes the perfect balance between campy melodrama and sincerity. It's definitely helped by a fantastic music video in which Freddie somehow manages to look hot dressed like a giant lobster, don't ask. I think this is one of Freddie's most authentic pieces of songwriting and one of his most passionate vocal performances as a result. This song really does kind of sum up who he was as a person. And I often get a little misty-eyed listening to this song in hindsight, knowing what would end up happening to Freddie in less than 10 years' time. He really did do it for love. This one's a high A tier for me. It's a special song. Man on the Prowl has more of Freddie doing kind of his pseudo-Elvis thing. It's obviously not as memorable as Crazy Little Thing Called Love, but it's a style that suits him pretty well, and the song is nice, so I'll put it in B tier. Machines, or Back to Humans. What is this Mr. Roboto crap? Yeah, this song is basically just Mr. Roboto, but not as fun and every bit as stupid. Into the Y tier you go. I Want to Break Free. What a classic. What a perfect piece of pop music. God, no! This song should sound so dated, but somehow I love it more with every listen. It's going really high on the A tier. Keep Passing the Open Windows is probably one of the Queen songs I relate the most to. I remember it being a big comfort song for me back in 8th grade when it all went wrong. It's a really nice, sincere song about trying to stay optimistic in the midst of mental health issues. It's basically Don't Try Suicide, but serious. Feels like Freddie's giving you a hug. A tier. Great song to listen to when dealing with the horrors. Hammer to Fall, my favorite single from the album and probably my second favorite Queen song from the 80s. Great riff, it's great live, fantastic lyrics. S tier. I don't really know what else to say about it. I've only grown to love this song more over the years. For a band known for being pomp and ridiculous, Queen could really pull off a serious message when they wanted to, and they absolutely do with this song. I think it says a lot that this is one of the most understated songs in Queen's catalog. They could have given it a grand production and made it a big single, especially in the 80s. That was what people did back then. But instead, it's just Freddie on vocals and Brian on guitar, and the message really gets to speak for itself. I really appreciate the maturity and honesty of this song, and that there's no easy solution offered at the end. There's no peace and love will fix the world's problems. It really just wants you to think. I'm gonna put this song really high in A tier, almost in S. It's just a little too short for that. But for all of the legendary showmanship of their main set, this song is actually my favorite part of Queen's Live Aid performance. There's also the bonus track I Go Crazy, which seems to imply that Queen had beef with the Rolling Stones at some point. Who cares? It rocks. B tier. And another B tier. Thank God It's Christmas. This song just makes me warm and fuzzy. So that's The Works. I like this album a lot better than I expected to. I'm surprised at the quality of songs on this thing. It might be my favorite 80s Queen album. Unfortunately, we've arrived at what in my opinion is Queen's actual worst album. A Kind of Magic is the unofficial soundtrack to the movie Highlander, which I've never seen and probably never will. And the reason I think it's the worst Queen album is because I think it's the only one where there's virtually nothing to gain from listening to the album in its entirety. There are no good non-singles on this album. Literally all of the songs I like on this album you can listen to on Greatest Hits 2 and ignore the rest. We did still get a fantastic tour and my favorite 80s Queen song out of this album, so let's get into it. One Vision is an incredibly fun, upbeat rocker that makes world peace sound so badass, and has the funniest random out-of-nowhere ending lyric I've ever heard. Tier, off to a deceptively great start. The title track is also pretty groovy. I used to not be too crazy about it, but you can't deny the charm of Freddie's infectious ad-libbed laughter. It's a pretty decent B tier. And here's where the album starts to go downhill. One Year of Love is like the least interesting Queen song I've ever heard. It sounds so plastic. I never thought I'd describe a Queen song as lame. D tier. Freddie really sounds like he's straining his voice on this one too. Pain is so close to pleasure. Freddie tries to sound like Diana Ross on Where Did Our Love Go? And it's not very good. Also D tier. Friends Will Be Friends is admittedly kinda corny with its sing-along chorus and not as good as the other Queen song about friendship, but at least it's charming and has a good melody, so I'll put it in B tier. The real saving grace of A Kind of Magic for me is Who Wants to Live Forever. I adore this song. This is without a doubt Brian May's best love ballad. The music and lyrics are just so sweepingly romantic and heartbreaking. It's probably my favorite song to fuse rock instruments with symphonic orchestrations, and it's also got my favorite Queen music video with the candles and Freddie looking so handsome in his suit. And it's also a Roy Eye song! If you know, you know. I should also mention that when I got to see Queen in concert 5 years ago, Adam Lambert absolutely bodied this song. It was probably my favorite performance of the night. Easy S tier, probably in my top 10 favorite Queen songs ever. Unfortunately, we're back to mindless butt rock with Gimme the Prize. I will spare this one the bottom tier because there is some really good guitar work at the beginning, and I love the novelty of Freddie singing a villain song. And he does sound great, even though he's still kind of straining his voice. It's very similarly brainless to stuff like Tear It Up, though. It's C tier for me. Don't Lose Your Head sure does make me wish I was listening to the Six song with the same title instead. It's so repetitive and pointless, and then there's a random lyric about drinking and driving? What? You guessed it, it's going in the Y tier. Princess of the Universe is definitely a bit macho and overwrought for my taste, but it has enough interesting musical stuff going on to make up for it, especially in comparison to the rest of the album. I'll give it a solid B tier, it goes pretty hard. That was A Kind of Magic. The non-singles on this album might as well be the reason I even have a bottom tier. Yeah, this is pretty much the album I thought Hot Space was going to be. It was a pretty shocking revelation to me at the time I listened to this album because it was only the third Queen album I'd heard, so I hadn't listened to Get Down, Make Love or Body Language yet. Queen can make songs I don't like? Fortunately, this is a trend that somewhat continues on Queen's next album, The Miracle, which is definitely their most mid-album, and the one with the worst cover art, geez. I'm actually still trying to figure out if I think The Miracle is as bad as A Kind of Magic, or if it's ever so slightly better. It does have good songs that aren't singles, but it also doesn't have anything as great as Who Wants to Live Forever. In fact, I think this is the only Queen album where I actually wouldn't put any songs in the S tier. We start off with two thoroughly obnoxious opening tracks from a band that's usually great at them, Party and Khashoggi Ship. Songs aren't completely irredeemable. There's some interesting harmonies in Party, and Khashoggi Ship has this one cool swing breakdown and a guitar part that sounds kind of like Witch's Rave by Jeff Buckley. Hey, one of this song's two redeeming qualities is that it reminds me of a song I like better. I debated whether to put them in C tier or D tier, but I think I'm gonna put them in D tier because these are literally the first impressions you have of this album, and this is what you go with? I kind of just find these songs to be vapid and not nearly as fun as they should be. It's honestly rather sad because this is the first Queen album where you can really tell Freddie's AIDS diagnosis was looming over the band, and there's a real sense of denial pervading some of the tracks on this album, i.e. No One Stops My Party. I was originally going to put the title track in C tier because there's some really odd lyrics and some of the singing on the chorus is kind of grating. However, there's a real sincerity to this song that ultimately ended up charming me, and there's some orchestral details in the arrangement that are really inspired. Ultimately, what convinced me to like this song was the extremely endearing music video, which features 4 adorable little boys as the younger versions of Queen. They all do such a terrific job mimicking the members' mannerisms, especially little Freddie, who perfectly captures every ounce of his adult version's passion and charisma. And when the band members come on at the end and start jamming with them, it's so wholesome and cute! The most enduring hit from The Miracle is I Want It All, which is a classic Queen anthem in every sense of the word, and it's a real pity that they never got to perform it at concerts. It'd be so bad if we occasionally swapped We Will Rock You Out for this song at sports games. please. Epic chorus, epic guitar solo, all around epic. It's going in A. I get a big kick out of The Invisible Man. It's got a really great bass line, and I love the little roll call with all the band members. It also benefits from a really charming music video that's kind of like a less chaotic version of Twisted Sister's video for We're Not Gonna Take It. Not an all-time classic, but a bop nonetheless. I'll put it in the higher end of B tier. I love Breakthrough. It's probably my favorite song from the album, and I think the most unabashedly happy Queen song since Don't Stop Me Now. If I could only reach you, if I could make you smile. Such a fun, energetic chorus, maybe my favorite Queen bass line. And I love that they're on a train in the music video because that's really how listening to the song makes me feel. It's a solid A tier. Rain Must Fall. This song is so boring. D tier. Scandal is technically a single, but it's still kind of under the radar enough for me to consider it a deep cut. I love the dramatic string effect that Brian's guitar has, and Freddie brings a ton of pathos on the bridge. It's not the best, but it's a solid B tier, which I definitely appreciate as this album is honestly looking worse by the second. My Baby Does Me isn't good either. I'm so sick of these boring, pointless, repetitive songs. What are you guys doing? A decent bridge, but that's not enough to save it from D tier. The main part of the album closes with Was It All Worth It, which is clearly intended to be a sort of swan song for the band in case Freddie passed before they could make another album, which thankfully didn't happen because the next album is much better than this one. I have somewhat mixed thoughts on this song. On one hand, I absolutely love the synth hook, and there's some excellent lyrical and vocal moments. There's definitely a sense of pathos and gravitas to this song, and I'm always a sucker for Queen getting a little self-reflective. It does, however, contain some of the most inexcusably forced rhymes in their entire catalog.
We saw the bumpers like a bloody suckers.
Bad Queen, bad. There's a chord change near the end though that's so satisfying it makes me forgive all of that, so fortunately the song still stays in A tier. The Miracle actually has 4 bonus tracks, none of which are particularly good. The best one is Chinese Torture, which is a pretty cool instrumental with some neatly ominous strings. I don't actively revisit it though, so I'll still put it in C tier. Hang On In There's also C tier. It's kind of not very well written, but it's about Freddie's illness, so I can't bring myself to be too mean to it. Stealin'! Freddie really said be gay, do crimes. It's still D tier though. And Hijack My Heart is the single dumbest Roger Taylor song ever. I literally do not know what the point of this is. It's so stupid. Maybe The Miracle actually is worse than A Kind of Magic. It takes up over half of the bottom tier. Nah, I guess I'll still say they're tied. I do think The Miracle overall had stronger singles than A Kind of Magic did. And even if The Miracle takes up more space in the bottom tier, I still think A Kind of Magic's 3 non-singles in the bottom tier are worse than The Miracle's. Fortunately though, we've waded through the river of mid to get to Queen's final 2 albums, which while not perfect, have absolutely produced some of their most fascinating and moving work. The 7-minute opening and title track of Innuendo is certainly one of Queen's most ambitious singles, with its synths of cosmic grandeur, soaring vocals, and powerful and defiant lyrics. If there's a god, if there's any kind of justice up in the sky, if there's a point, if there's a reason to live or die, if there's an answer to the questions we feel bound to ask, show yourself, destroy our fears, release your mask. That's some pretty powerful stuff for the stomp stomp clap guys. And you know what? I take back what I said about the Prophet song. This is Queen's best guitar solo. A tier. This is already better than literally every song on The Miracle. I'm Going Slightly Mad is such an inspired cut. It's got this delightfully spooky camp to it that I just love, along with one of the best music videos. It's also a fantastic showcase for the lower half of Freddie's range, which we don't get to hear a lot. But as fun as this track is, it's not difficult to hear this underlying sense of doom pervading both the music and the lyrics. The seemingly nonsensical word salady lyrics have been confirmed to be inspired by Freddie's real-life AIDS-aggravated dementia. And it's truly disturbing to watch the video for this song and know that behind Freddie's blinding smile and clown-like makeup was a man crying for help. A tier, easily one of my favorite tracks on the album. I love it as both an incredibly enjoyable song and a harrowing look into Freddie's psyche. Headlong definitely isn't a perfect song. It has some really incoherent lyrics, and Freddie's voice sounds unusually nasally. But dang it, it's just such goofy fun, especially the music video, which honestly shows off the band's camaraderie and sense of humor better than any of the others. B tier, it's so silly and I love it. I Can't Live With You, B tier, not much to say about this one other than that it's a really nice hard rock cut. Brian and Roger's vocal blend sounds really good here too. Don't Try So Hard, we get a really poignant and delicate vocal from Freddie on this one. There's a fragility to his voice here that I haven't really heard the likes of since Queen 2. It's a lovely song, even though the second verse doesn't really make much sense. There's all these random lyrics about a sergeant major that don't really connect to the first. Ride the Wild Wind, a decent enough rocker, but one of the least interesting tracks on the album lyrically, so I'll put it in Any Way the Wind Blows. All God's People is probably my least favorite track on the album. It sounds overblown and underwritten. There's some interesting enough harmonic stuff going on to keep it out of the dreaded D tier, but there's this one part that sounds like it's trying to rip off Lion King, and I'm like, really? Delilah is a song about Freddie's cat, and it's definitely a song. Yeah, objectively, this is definitely the worst song on this album, but it's just so endearingly ridiculous that I can't hate it. I feel like the rest of the members knew Freddie didn't have long, so they let him keep the song because they knew it would make him happy. Like, let him sing about Delilah peeing all over his Chippendale suite. He's literally dying. But yeah, this is such a beautiful train wreck. Songs like this are the reason I made the It's a Metaphor Brian tier. The Hitman! This song rocks! Give Freddie more villain songs, please! I was debating whether to put this song in A tier because I really like it, but I haven't listened to it a lot. And then I listened to it again and Freddie said, I've been to the Hitman school! And I was like, yes, of course I will put you in the A tier, Freddie. You are much too adorable for anything less. It's a little difficult to talk about These Are the Days of Our Lives. The thing I keep coming back to listening to the last 3 Queen albums is the fact that nobody outside of Freddie's close circle even knew that he had AIDS. So I keep trying to put myself in the shoes of how a fan who was there when these albums were being made must have felt. Noticing that the band isn't touring anymore, listening to songs like this and Was It All Worth It that clearly seem to show the band preparing for the end of something. And watching the music video for this song and seeing Freddie paper thin and caked in makeup, smiling into the camera with tears in his eyes as he whispers that last "I still love you," and having a sinking feeling that something is terribly, terribly wrong. Whew, anyways, I'm putting this song in A tier, it's beautiful. Under different circumstances, a song like this might be dismissed as overly sentimental, but Queen had absolutely earned it. It's a testament to everything they went through, both as a band and as people. Bijou. When I tell people Brian May can make guitars cry, this is what I mean. The song is so beautiful. Also, if Freddie Mercury called me his Bijou, I would probably die. A tier. The Show Must Go On. There are certain moments in music history that are so special that they simply cannot be replicated. And a dying Freddie Mercury famously downing 2 shots of vodka and powering through this extremely difficult song in one take is one of those moments. I believe that at times, perhaps Brian knew Freddie better than he knew himself, and this song is the perfect example of that. He managed to distill the very spirit of who Freddie was, the very heart of what makes him special, into 4 of the most perfect soaring minutes in Queen's entire catalog. And it has become an anthem for every artist who has ever pushed through whatever struggles because they simply had to sing. This is one of the best songs of all time, S tier. So that was Innuendo, a multifaceted, imperfect, yet gorgeous swan song, much like the band itself. So ends the story of Queen. Except Made in Heaven. To naysayers who never understood the band to begin with, this is Queen's most sentimental and pointless album. But I simply can't help but love it as the band's most reflective and emotionally powerful work, and it's possibly my 3rd favorite album in their discography. It's also a shockingly cohesive album for essentially being a patchwork of songs the band accumulated throughout the 80s and 90s but never recorded. The album opens with It's a Beautiful Day, which features Freddie over a simple yet arresting piano and synth chord progression. The song has such an ethereal and transcendent quality to it. I really feel like I'm standing with Freddie at the gates of heaven as he defiantly belts out, "No one's gonna stop me now." A tier, great opener, immediately shows you what the album's gonna be. Hope and determination are two of this album's primary emotions, as you continue to see on the title track Made in Heaven. A tier, really gorgeous, powerful track, both in terms of music and lyrics. Let Me Live is a really gorgeous, soulful ballad that I think could have been a huge hit if it had been released earlier in the band's career. This is the only Queen track, I think, where Freddie, Brian, and Roger all get a solo verse, and it's great to hear their vocals play off each other. They all sound so good. I'm gonna give this one a really high A tier. I love this song. Freddie Mercury, help me, it's 11 p.m. The show must go on! Even if it hadn't been Freddie's last recorded vocal performance, even if he hadn't died before he could record the second verse, leaving Brian to finish the song for him, I still think Mother Love would be the most devastating song Queen ever recorded. This is probably the most vulnerable and unmasked we ever get to see Freddie. Even The Show Must Go On had an element of grandeur, of showmanship, of performance. Mother Love is simply hopeless and exhausted. So many details in the song just destroy me, from the sound of a door slamming after the lyric "Mama, please let me back inside," to the obvious shake in Brian's voice on his verse letting you know that Freddie's gone, to the cacophony of sounds from all throughout Queen's career culminating in the sound of a crying baby, as if we've rewinded all the way back to the beginning of Freddie's life. Obviously, you guys know I love songs that destroy me, so I'm putting Mother Love in S tier. I also think it's so Roy Mustang coded, so that helps. Aside from the obvious awkwardness of the title, I do think My Life Has Been Saved is probably the most nothing song on Mother Love. It just doesn't really offer anything musically or emotionally that isn't done better somewhere else on the album, so I'll put it in C tier. I Was Born to Love You is one of the most adorable songs of all time. Someone please serenade me with this right now. Just such a sunburst of passion and energy and joy. I love this song. It's an A tier. I do feel kind of bad for not really caring for Heaven for Everyone, as I do think the song has a great message, but to me it mostly just feels like Queen tried to take the subject matter of the miracle and is this the world we created and make it sound like these are the days of our lives, and it's not as memorable as any of those songs, so it's a C tier for me. Oh my gosh, I remember hearing Too Much Love Will Kill You when I was 12 and thinking it was the saddest song I'd heard in my entire life. If Mother Love is the most devastating Queen song, this is a very close second. Both Brian May and Freddie Mercury have excellent versions of this song, and the lyrics take on a completely different meaning depending on who's singing it. With Brian, you hear a broken, regretful man resigned to the failure of his marriage, and with Freddie, you hear the star that shined too brightly, terrified to leave behind the world he loved so much. Too Much Love Will Kill You is so heartfelt and so gorgeous. It's an easy S tier for me. A Winter's Tale, a breathtakingly bittersweet song with some really lovely imagery. Like several of the songs on Queen's last two albums, this one easily could have come across as overly sentimental in a different context, but man, knowing it's Freddie in the last few months of his life, whew. For all his hedonism and larger-than-lifeness, I really do think Freddie had an appreciation and perhaps even an envy for the simpler, sweeter things in life, and this song really shows that. A tier. I've never really cared for You Don't Fool Me. It's just a little repetitive for my liking, and perhaps one of the only Queen songs where Freddie sounds bored, which I suppose I shouldn't really fault him for considering, but you know. I don't hate it, but it's a C tier for me. It's a Beautiful Day reprise. Pretty much the same things to say about this one that I said about the original It's a Beautiful Day. It's mostly the same song, albeit with a guitar breakdown. Since they're so similar and I'd ultimately rather listen to the first one, I'll put it at the top of B tier. Yeah, which is literally just Freddie saying yeah. It's a metaphor, Brian. And finally, track 13, the 22-minute hidden ambiance at the end of the album. Obviously, this isn't ever something I'm just going to sit down and listen to, but it's lovely to put on in the background. It really adds to that transcendent, heavenly quality that much of this album has, and I think it ties the whole project together very nicely, so I'll put it in B tier. And at last, we have come to the final recording of the original lineup, sans Freddie, the tribute No One But You, Only the Good Die Young. In spite of its obvious pathos, this track does fall a little short lyrically for me, and if I want to pay my respects to Freddie, I'll usually just turn on The Show Must Go On or Mother Love. But man, I cannot deny the emotion in Brian's voice on There's a Face at the Window and I Ain't Never Saying Goodbye. Just for that, I'm putting this song at the top of B tier. Whoa, this was a trip. 14 albums, 6 days, 4 outfits, God knows how many unwanted shifts in lighting and camera angle. So the question you might be asking yourself is, was it all worth it?
Yes, it was a worthwhile experience!
I love Queen so much, and as grueling as this video has been to make, I have had so much fun going back through all of their music, rediscovering old favorites, and sharing my love for them with you guys through what is now the longest video I have ever made. The first one to crack an hour, can you believe it? I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope I've given you a new layer of appreciation for some of these songs, and I'll just leave you with one more piece of information before you go. In My Defense is the best Freddie solo song. Good night, and I still love you.